Well, it was a good news day today, the best we've had in a long time. 3 Supreme Court judges banned a pro-Palestinian rally from taking place at the Upper House this Sunday. They said given the extreme safety risks as outlined by New South Wales Police, it could not proceed at the Upper House, which only holds 6,000 people on the forecourt. The judges ruled that the risk to public safety associated with this public assembly is so significant that it would be irresponsible to allow the public assembly to proceed. And New South Wales Premier Chris Minns welcomed the decision. He also rejected a request to light up the Upper House sails in the Palestinian flag.
I think it was the right decision. I'm glad that common sense has prevailed here. We expect all applicants to abide by the court's decision. I think reasonable people in Sydney would expect the police to uphold this judgment on the weekend. I know that there's been many Palestinian Action Group protests over the last 2 years, something approaching 100 during that period of time.
Sensible commentary, as usual, from the Premier. Now, this has been treated as some grave injustice by the Palestine Action Group, which was carrying on about a genocide outside court and the right to free speech. But this is utter nonsense for 2 reasons. Well, firstly, they can still protest. There's no free speech issue. They can protest in Hyde Park, in Bankstown, as they did on Tuesday night on the anniversary of October 7, just not at the Opera House. And secondly, what are they actually protesting? A peace deal has been agreed. Palestinians are celebrating in Gaza. Israelis are celebrating. So what are they still protesting? It's ludicrous. I mean, if Palestinians are celebrating in Gaza, then surely the group that claims to represent them should take their cue and be celebrating too. Yet this group still plans to go ahead with their protest on Sunday. It'll just be on George Street, not at the Opera House. And can you imagine this absurd spectacle this weekend? I mean, Israel suspending military operations, withdrawing from populated areas in Gaza, and these idiotic protesters marching down George Street. The protest has no purpose now, with a peace deal about to be signed tonight. Its only effect will be to intimidate Australian Jews. Now, Sky News reporter Kenny Heatley asked an organiser, Damien Ridgewell, about this outside the court.
If there's a ceasefire in the next 48 hours, is there still a need to protest and fight?
Yes, because this goes beyond just the genocide over the last 2 years. Obviously, it's important because Israel has only been able to carry out a genocide because they have been armed by countries like Australia and the United States because of the political support that they've received from those governments. We've seen hundreds of thousands of Palestinians have lost their lives because of that complicity. We need to end the policy of complicity with an apartheid regime which has been oppressing Palestinians since 1947.
Quite aside from all of those inaccuracies, he is wrong. This is a time for celebration, not protest. But it shouldn't surprise us because 48 hours after the deadly massacre in Israel 2 years ago, another pro-Palestinian organiser, Josh Lees, said this.
And we're on the side of the Palestinians, not just when they're the victims and being massacred. We're also on the side of the Palestinians when they fight back.
And that same organiser refused to condemn Hamas in an interview with 2GB.
Do you view Hamas as a terrorist organisation or a group of freedom fighters?
Yeah, but you want to start with that question, but that doesn't...
Well, we can get it out of the way if you answer it.
That's not where the conversation can start. That's the problem. And, you know, we've been obviously bombarded with these questions.
But why don't we just answer... Let's just answer the question and then I'll move on. It's pretty simple. You've got the power. Answer the question.
Well, I think we should start with the fact that Israel is a terrorist state, actually.
And another Palestine Action Group organiser at the time of the Upper House protest, Asila Sahara, said at the rally 2 years ago that Hamas had the right to resist.
So to anyone who comes out with an argument that says Hamas is a terrorist organisation, let me tell you that it is internationally recognised that we Palestinians, as Hamas, have a right to resist ethnic cleansing.
Well, this is clearly inflammatory support for a terror group. But it was even more shocking given it was right after October 7, long before any Israeli response had even started. Now, in court, the Jewish groups did make one submission to this case. It essentially argued that they were not opposed to pro-Palestinian protests and had not made any similar submissions previously. But they were against this one because the location was traumatising and the timing was provocative. The Palestine Action Group tried to have this submission from the Jewish groups excluded from the judge's consideration, but they rejected this. The judges said it was a relevant consideration, although it wasn't referenced in the judgment, which focused on physical safety and security. But one journalist outside court asked Damien Ridgewell this very important question.
But Damien, aren't you missing the point here? They're allowing you to demonstrate. This is not at the Opera House where they say it's unsafe.
And that's exactly right. No one is stopping free speech. No one is stopping their hateful protests. It's just the attempt to take over major landmarks that's so deeply objectionable. Now, I was blown away when I heard former Labor Defence Minister Joel Fitzgibbon cut straight to the heart of this point today.
I don't know what they're protesting about now, given we were on the verge of a peace deal in the Middle East. But what they could do, because they're going to insist on protesting on Sunday regardless of whether they can use the Opera House, what they should be doing now is to use their gathering, if they must have one, to put pressure on Hamas to follow through on this peace deal.
And when Joel Fitzgibbon was asked about the Australian government's role by Kieran Gilbert, he said in his answer that the recognition of Palestine at the United Nations was premature and even futile. And he spoke strongly about how Jews have a right to feel safe in the city.
The right to peaceful process is a key tenet of any democracy, but people are entitled to feel safe. The people who are organising these events, not all of those who march or gather, because they vary significantly in their attitudes and their understanding of the issue. But these people who are pushing these protests are extremists themselves. And as a community, we need to be sending the message that while we support peaceful protests, we don't support that sort of extremism on the streets of our capital cities or anywhere else for that matter.
I mean, you'd never hear that from Anthony Albanese or Tony Burke, that they're extremists. Such stunning moral clarity from Joel Fitzgibbon. It's a reminder of how the Federal Labor Party used to be a long-standing ally of Israel's and the Jewish community. That is, until Penny Wong and Albanese seized control with a left-wing takeover of caucus. And with it, any sense of genuine leadership and the ability to call out the most brutal of terrorism disappeared.